Wix Studio, one end-to-end web creation platform for your agency to deliver exceptional work with absolute efficiency.
The #1 long-form writer that helps SEOs outrank competition at the click of a button using real-time research and NLP. Start ranking content today with contentatscale.ai.
Hi everyone, I'm Jess, and just going to kick off talking about a little bit of a story. So something we've done recently is we found keywords with over 400,000 searches per month that our clients' competitors just weren't targeting, kind of massive opportunity. And what we also were able to do was find a platform that had over 5 million searches per month that these same competitors just weren't visible on. So huge opportunity for our client here. And you're probably not wondering, but how, because you've seen the title of my talk, but it was keyword research. So just to kind of introduce myself very quickly, I'm Jess, Search Strategy Lead at Rise at 7. As just mentioned then, I've kind of moved from SEO into more of kind of strategy role, and part of what I do is kind of keyword research on a weekly basis. Socials are up there as well, I love to connect with people. So back to the stuff, so keyword research. Now, I'm sure many people in this room have done keyword research, and what can actually happen and what clients can kind of sometimes say is keyword research sucks. It's got a bit of a bad rep, I think, as one of the kind of SEO tasks. And there's some kind of common themes I've seen of why kind of keyword research does suck. So one of them, at an agency many moons ago, we had a limit of how many keywords we could research for that client based on kind of SEMrush, how many kind of keywords we had in SEMrush. So we could do 100 keywords per client, and that was the limit, regardless of if it was a 2-page website or a 150,000 page website, I don't know. So kind of you're limiting yourself when you do have a limit on the number of keywords that you would do. There's also limitations when you don't include keyword variations in your keyword research. So that can be things like plurals, and missing out kind of both of those, saying that they are the same keyword. In some cases, when you do look at plurals of keywords, the search volumes can differ quite a lot. So it's always worth considering that. And another kind of keyword variation that I think it's important to include is misspellings. And I know a lot of people have different opinions on this one. But if you've got a search keyword that's a misspelling, but there's 500 searches per month, you know they're still searching for that same thing. And by discrediting that, you're missing out on search volume. Also, another approach I've seen, and this isn't terrible, but you can miss out if you do this, where you only pull keywords for like what the site currently ranks for. So pulling keywords from Search Console and using that as kind of your basis for all the keywords you're going to target. Because, okay, you're going to find opportunities in there that potentially on page 2, page 3, but you're missing out on opportunities that they maybe just aren't relevant for at all. So it's always worth kind of going further than that. And then finally, and this is the reason, like how I came up with the reason for this talk, is once you've done this keyword research at the start of a campaign, the start of a new client, you then only pull this keyword research back out every month and you say, okay, we've got 5 new rankings for these keywords. And what I want to try and talk through today is how you can use this keyword research constantly throughout the process. And this is something we do at Rise, so introducing something that we call the keyword universe. And basically, we use this keyword universe to understand more about the audience. So we look at things like their interests, their behaviours, what motivates them and how they shop, things like that. And we use this as part of our search strategy in order to understand the audience. Now, this isn't the only thing we use. We have a full approach called Search Everywhere. So this is kind of where we're looking at how people are searching, not just on Google, but other platforms. And the methodology for the Search Everywhere approach is kind of split 2 ways. So we look at audience and platforms. And you can see on here, keyword research kind of covers both of those areas. So it's an important part of how we build a strategy. So basically what we want to do is go from something that looks a little bit like this, big spreadsheet, really kind of hard to digest, and you can turn it into something that looks a little bit like this. So turning your keyword research into a dashboard that's really useful, and I'll kind of touch on this a little bit more later. Basically, you want to be able to blow your client's mind with the insight that you provide them. So what I'm going to run through now is the kind of insight you can pull from keyword research that you might not have already considered. First one's intent. So I think everyone, when they look at keyword research, talks about intent. It is really important, and that can be kind of the 4 intents: commercial, transactional, navigational, the other one. Or you can look at it in like the funnel, so the awareness funnel, consideration, conversion phase. And that's really useful insight, but you can get more granular. And I think the first talk in this session kind of covered this perfectly, but looking at those pillars, those categories, whatever you want to call them, you can get much more granular. So this is an example of a holiday supplier we work with, and we looked at categories like the location, where the parks are, and what accommodation type, like caravans, lodges, things like that. You can get much more granular, but you can even take it a step further than this. So once you've got your top categories, okay, let's split them out even further and see exactly how people are searching within that category. So for time of year, we can see, not surprisingly, school holidays is the most popular time that people want to book a holiday. And just go as deep as possible, get as much insight out of these categories as you possibly can. You can also look at where they're searching. Again, seasonality, nothing new. But what I think's important and what I think's done a lot is people will look at seasonality retrospectively. So you'll go into a monthly meeting with a client and say, okay, traffic is either up or down this month compared to last month because of the time of year. It's Christmas versus November or whatever. Which, okay, important. But what you can do when you look at seasonality from the get-go of your keyword research, you can plan your year accordingly. So if you've got keywords in a certain category that looks a little bit like this, where September is down compared to kind of the months around it, you can say, okay, let's pick the other category, like boost that to kind of bridge some of that gap. And just using that insight to kind of inform what you're going to do. The next area is looking at the different channels. So this is where we move away from like traditional kind of SEO and just Google. And essentially, you want to be spending your marketing budget where people are spending their time. This isn't me saying that people are moving away from Google completely. Google is not dead, but it's important to consider kind of other areas. And yeah, look further than Google. So in this example, it's a hair care client that we've got. And yeah, Google's still massive, 3.8 million searches per month. We still want to be working and looking in that area. But we also found things like Instagram and YouTube was a big opportunity for us. TikTok's a little bit different because we can't compare monthly search volume, but there's still huge opportunity there for us as well. So it's just about opening our eyes to kind of see, yeah, where people are searching and how we should plan our approach based on that. And then the final bit of insight I always get from my keyword research is looking at competitors at this stage. So comparing how they perform. So this is looking at kind of the top 100 rankings. The top row is our client, the other 3 are the competitors, comparing kind of how many rankings they've got, and then also looking at estimated clicks. Now, the reason I use estimated clicks here, because you could pull your actual clicks for these keywords for the client and compare them against these estimated clicks, but you don't know what the competitors are doing. So it's a really relative approach. Even though it might not be 100% accurate, relatively you can see how they compare. And insights from things like this, you can kind of see our client here was ahead of the competition in terms of the amount of clicks. But if we look at the second row, they had less clicks, but they had more rankings on page 1. So it's something we can kind of highlight early on and use this to inform kind of how we construct our strategy. What we can also do is go back to that categorization and find areas that competitors aren't targeting. So this chart covers the estimated clicks for all three clients combined, and we can kind of see, okay, these are the areas they're not targeting. This could be, okay, it's an area we can get a really easy win here because they're not visible, or we can dig a bit deeper and start to understand why they're not targeting there, and it could be it's actually not an area we want to focus on for whatever reason. And likewise, we can also look at where they are focusing there in their keywords they're targeting, and use that insight to kind of help inform our content strategy and all of that. So basically, we use all of this to develop a really slick search strategy. So keyword research kind of sits at the start of that. We also look at kind of audience, brand, and things like that, and it all works together to build something that kind of works really well for our clients. And when we're pulling a search strategy together, there's a couple of key things that we do that is kind of just standard. So search strategy kind of 101. You can start to identify weaknesses and do something about them really quickly. It's a really kind of easy way to kind of get the quick wins over the line. And common weaknesses you might find are things like wrong search intent, wrong platforms and understanding kind of what those platforms are, and things like the wrong time of year you're kind of putting content live and stuff like that. You can also start to understand the customer journey across platforms. Okay, so we can see that people are searching on other platforms for our products, but when we talk of kind of a customer journey, it's usually how they interact on our website, but they could be interacting on different platforms at different point in that journey. So for this example, potentially at the exposure stage, people will be on TikTok, and that's kind of where we need to drive content that drives that exposure. But further down the line, when we actually want to convert them, we know that works better on Google, so we can use that to kind of help inform it. And then also, obviously, recognise competitor efforts, but just understand it isn't the blueprint for success. Whatever your competitors are doing doesn't mean they're doing it well. It's just about using that insight and digging a little bit deeper to understand what they're doing and why, and then using that to inform what you're going to do. So to put that into practice a bit, what I'm going to run you through now is the kind of stages that we do to pull this keyword research and how we pull it. And there's essentially 4 areas that we do this. The first one is to gather keywords, lots of them. Spoke about at the start, kind of don't limit yourself to 100 keywords. Just pull the most keywords you could possibly pull. Typically what I would do is go to things, something like Ahrefs, put in my key term, which was hairdryer, for example, and I'd just download everything. Just download it all. There's got to be some crap in there, but we'll get to that on the next stage, which is determine your categories. So when you've got this big keyword list, and I think Malcolm's method of pulling this together is great. I'm not going to show you how I do it because my sheet just always breaks. But you determine your categories and start tagging them in however way you want. One of those categories should be negative, and that's how you get all the crap out quite quickly. But then other categories that you might want to do are things like guide, really simple one, and any keyword that contains the word what, why, how, and where, I would just tag up as a guide. And then for hairstyles, for example, any keyword that contained curls, waves, bouncy volume, they were my hairstyles keywords. Now, it's not a perfect method, there will be some overlap, but you can get a really clear idea of the categories and how many keywords are in those categories. This next slide is just an example of kind of the typical categories you might want to pick if you're working in any of these industries. So travel I've touched on, kind of time of year. Hair tools, you might want to look at the quality of the product, the hair types. Home appliance, you might want to look at the colour if you want a black fridge or a white fridge. So you're going to know your industry best to determine these categories, but there's loads of opportunity, and as I say, get really granular with these. And then the next stage is to pull the search volumes and rankings. So we use keywordtool.io to pull a lot of our search volumes. You can get like social search volumes off there as well. And then we use SEO Monitor to pull our rankings. And you basically want to pull all this insight together, get it all into something that looks a little bit like this. Horrible. But all the data's in here, and this is kind of now how we want to kind of transform that into something that's useful. And as I touched on, we create a dashboard. So this is a template, it's just all dummy data in here. But it's just a really good visualization. We share it with clients, you can use it internally, it's something you can always refer back to. And you can kind of set this up however you need to. But it just helps you, it helps me especially, digest this data really easily, and then you can start pulling your insights from it, which is the next step. So the final little bit here I'm going to run through is kind of how we would use this insight, so an actual example of how we've done this for a client and what kind of insight we've pulled from them, just from keyword research without any of the other stuff we've done. So going back to the hairstyler client, we were able to look at the kind of categories, and what we were actually able to find is quality keywords was one of the biggest opportunity areas, closely followed by hairstyles, hair types, and guides. So we can see, okay, there's where the opportunity is. That's why people are searching just on Google for this example. But what we could also see is that competitors just weren't targeting this term. So over 400,000 searches per month, but these competitors, between them, only got about 350 clicks a month. Okay, massive opportunity, and we've used this insight to help inform kind of how we've built our brand strategy and our campaigns. We can also look at kind of seasonality. Obviously, November, December, peak months for them, unsurprisingly. Build up to Christmas, people want to buy presents. But again, we've been able to use this insight to plan our next 6 months and where we're going to be just before Christmas. So kind of final roundup here, how we use this keyword research. So we can adapt to client priorities because it's a dynamic kind of platform. It's something we can consistently update. We have rankings in there live. We have search volume in there live. We can refer to it whenever we are at the campaign. If a client comes to us and says, we've got a new product launching, we can go and look at that keyword research, see if we've got data around it. If not, we can add to it. We can also provide rankings with context. So rather than just saying, okay, we've got 5 more keywords on page 1, we can say, okay, we've got 5 more keywords for guide content on page 1 that's around kind of the commercial intent, something like that. And you can kind of just give that extra insight to your clients and add more value to your reports. You can also start to triage relevancy issues. So say, for example, you've got a client where impressions are great, they're really visible, they rank really well, but the clicks just aren't there. You can look at this at a glance and kind of start to see where those issues are and why the clicks aren't coming in, and you can build kind of a strategy around that. And finally, and I think this is the most important, you support other insight. As I say, we don't use this on its own. We work with kind of like do audience insights, kind of brand analysis, things like that. But this is kind of a part of that, and all together is just, yeah, a really slick way to get a really good strategy for your clients. So yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Monthly reporting making you want to shove sharp things up your nose? Try Dragon Metrics, the all-in-one SEO software with mind-blowing reporting tools.